Hello, hello, and good evening. I hope you're all doing very, very well, and that you had a good weekend. Normally, it's kinda sad thinking about how the next day will be Monday, with Mondays always being rough. But at the same time, only 3 days until Christmas. It's kind of crazy to think about, honestly. Got your gifts ready? Luckily, I've got all the presents I could ever need. It's just having you guys here to spend time with me. So, for tonight, I feel like I'd like to just chill a little bit and read. The good old nice soft reading. We'll be going back to my favorite book series, and probably the Odyssey as well. So, without further ado, as people filter in, we'll go ahead and get started. So kick back, relax, because here we go. With Chapter 7 of The Pawn of Prophecy. It took them 4 days to reach Doreen on the north coast. The first day went quite well, since, though it was cloudy and the wind kept blowing, the air was dry and the roads were good. They passed quiet farmsteads and an occasional farmer bent to his labor in the middle of a field. Inevitably, each man stopped his work to watch them pass. Some waved, but some did not. Hello, Jam Jam. Welcome in. And then there were villages, clusters of tall houses nestled in valleys. As they passed, the children came out and ran after the wagons, shouting with excitement. The villagers watched, idly curious, until it became obvious that the wagons were not going to stop. And then they sniffed and went back to their own concerns. As afternoon of that first day lowered toward evening, Silk led them into a grove of trees at the roadside, and they made preparations for the night. Thank you, Jam Jam. Hello to you as well. They ate the last of the ham and cheese Wolf had pilfered from Falder's pantry, then spread their blankets on the ground beneath the wagons. The ground was hard and cold, but the exciting sense of being on some great adventure helped Garion to endure the discomfort. The next morning, however, it began to rain. It was a fine, misty rain at first, scattering before the wind, but as the morning wore on, it settled into a steady drizzle. The musty smell of the turnips in their wet sacks became stronger, and Garion huddled miserably with his cloak pulled tightly around him. The adventure was growing much less exciting. The road became muddy and slick, and the horses struggled their way up each hill and had to be rested often. On the first day, they had covered 8 leagues. After that, they were lucky to make 5. Aunt Pole became waspish and short-tempered. "This is idiocy," she said to Mr. Wolf about noon on the 3rd day. "Everything is idiocy if you choose to look at it in the proper light," he replied philosophically. "Why wagoneers?" she demanded. "There are faster ways to travel. A wealthy family in a proper carriage, for instance, or imperial messengers on good horses. Either way would have put us in Doreen by now." and left a trail in the memories of all these simple people we've passed so wide that even a Thul could follow it. Hi, Milan, Wolf explained patiently. Brill has long since reported our departure to his employers. Every Murgo in Sandaria is looking for us by now. Why are we hiding from the Murgos, Mr. Wolf? Garion asked, hesitant to interrupt, but impelled by curiosity to try to penetrate the mystery behind their flight. Aren't they just merchants, like the Tolnedrins and the Dresnians? The Murgos have no real interest in trade, Wolf explained. Nadrax are merchants, but the Murgos are warriors. The Murgos pose as merchants for the same reason we pose as wagoneers, so that they can move about more or less undetected. If you simply assumed that all Murgos are spies, you wouldn't be too far from the truth. Haven't you anything better to do than ask all these questions? Antpole asked. Not really, Garion said, and then instantly knew that he'd made a mistake. Good, she said. In the back of Barak's wagon, you'll find the dirty dishes from this morning's meal. You'll also find a bucket. Fetch the bucket and run to that stream ahead for water, then return to Barak's wagon and wash the dishes. In cold water? He objected. Now, Garion, she said firmly. Grumbling, he climbed down off the slowly moving wagon. In the late afternoon of the fourth day, they came over a high hilltop and saw below the city of Doreen, and beyond the city, the leaden gray sea. Garion caught his breath. To his eyes, the city looked very large. Its surrounding walls were thick and high, and there were more buildings within those walls than he had ever seen in all his life. But it was to the sea that his eyes were drawn. There was a sharp tang to the air. Faint hints of that smell had been coming to him on the wind for a past league or so. But now, inhaling deeply, he breathed in that perfume of the sea for the first time in his life. His spirits soared. Finally, Antpole said. Silk had stopped the lead wagon and came walking back. His hood was pulled back slightly, and the rain ran down his long nose to drip from its pointed tip. Thank you, Jam Jam. Do we stop here or go on down to the city? He asked. We go to the city, Antpole said. I'm not going to sleep under a wagon when there are inns so close at hand. Honest wagoneers would seek out an inn, Mr. Wolf agreed, and a warm tap room. I might have guessed that, Antpole said. We have to try to look the part, Wolf shrugged. They went on down the hill, the horses' hooves slipping and sliding as they braced back against the weight of the wagons. At the city gate, 2 watchmen in stained tunics and wearing rust-spotted helmets came out of the tiny watchhouse just inside the gate. What's your business in Doreen? One of them asked Silk. I am Ambar of Kotu, Silk lied pleasantly, a poor Drasnian merchant hoping to do business in your splendid city. Splendid? One of the watchmen snorted. You're gonna shower in skincare? Sounds good, Lychee. Thank you for lurking, and welcome in. Hope to see you when you get back. What have you in your wagons, merchant? The other inquired. Turnips, Silk said deprecatingly. My family's been in the spice trade for generations, but I'm reduced to peddling turnips, he sighed. The world is a topsy-turvy place, is it not, good friend? We're obliged to inspect your wagons, the watchman said. It'll take some time, I'm afraid. And a wet time at that, Silk said, squinting up into the rain. It'd be much more pleasant to devote the time to weddings ones inside in some friendly tavern. That's difficult when one doesn't have much money, the watchman suggested hopefully. I'd be more than pleased if you'd accept some small token of friendship from me to aid you in your wedding, Silk offered. You're most kind, the watchman replied, with a slight bow. Some coins changed hands, and the wagons moved on into the city uninspected. Watching Silk in action has always been one of my favorite parts about this entire book series. The man is a performer, a class act at almost all times. Skilled, and he knows it too. So that just adds on to a lot of the fun of reading this. All characters get their chance to shine, but oh man, Silk is one of my favorites. You've never heard of this but you're vibing? Oh yeah. It's so good. From the hilltop, the rain had looked quite splendid, but Garion found it much less so as they clattered through the wet streets. The buildings all seemed the same with a kind of self-important aloofness about them, and the streets were littered and dirty. The salt tang of the sea was tainted here with the smell of dead fish, and the faces of the people hurrying along were grim and unfriendly. Garion's first excitement began to fade. Why are the people all so unhappy? He asked Mr. Wolf. They have a stern and demanding god, Wolf replied. Which god is that? Garion asked. Money, Wolf said. Money's a worse god than Torak himself. Don't fill the boy's head with nonsense, Antipole said. The people aren't really unhappy, Garion. They're just all in a hurry. They have important affairs to attend to, and they're afraid they'll be late. That's all. I don't think I'd like to live here, Garion said. It seems like a bleak, unfriendly kind of place, he sighed. Sometimes I wish we were all back at Falder's farm. There are worse places than Falder's, Wolf agreed. The inn Silk chose for them was near the docks, and the smell of the sea and the rank detritus of the meeting of the sea and land was strong here. The inn, however, was a stout building, with stables attached and storage sheds for the wagons. Like most inns, however, the main floor was given over to the kitchen and the large common room with its rows of tables and large fireplaces. The upper floors provided sleeping chambers for the guests. It's a suitable place, Silk announced as he came back out to the wagons after speaking at some length with the innkeeper. The kitchen seems clean, and I didn't see any bugs when I inspected the sleeping chambers. I'll inspect it, Antipole said, climbing down from the wagon. As you wish, great lady, Silk said with a polite bow. Antipole's inspection took much longer than Silk's, and it was nearly dusk when she returned to the courtyard. Adequate, she sniffed, but only barely. It's not as if we planned to settle in here for the winter, Pole, Wolf said. At most, we'll only be here a few days. She ignored that. I've ordered hot water sent up to our chambers, she announced. I'll take the boy up and wash him while you and the others see to the wagons and horses. Come along, Garion. And she turned and went back into the inn. Garion wished fervently that they would all stop referring to him as the boy. He did, after all, he reflected, have a name. You got your little Cassian emote? Very good, Jam Jam. He did, after all, he reflected, have a name, and it was not that difficult a name to remember. He was gloomily convinced that even if he lived long enough to have a long gray beard, they would still speak of him as the boy. You need a plushie now. Maybe someday. We'll get there. After the horses and wagons had been attended to, and they had all washed up, they went down again to the common room and dined. The meal certainly didn't match up to Aunt Pole's, but it was a welcome change from turnips. Garion was absolutely certain that he'd never be able to look at a turnip in the face again for the rest of his life. Yorn Manfred Becker, thank you for the follow, and welcome in. Hope you have a pleasant night and enjoy your stay. After they had eaten, the men loitered over their ale pots, and Aunt Pole's face registered her disapproval. Garion and I are going up to bed now, she said to them. Try not to fall down too many times when you come up. Wolf, Barak, and Silk laughed at that, but Dernick, Garion thought, looked a bit shamefaced. The next day, Mr. Wolf and Silk left the inn early and were gone all day. Garion had positioned himself in a strategic place in hopes that he might be noticed and asked to go along, but he was not. So when Dernick went down to look after the horses, he accompanied him instead. Dernick, he said after they had fed and watered the animals, and the smith was examining their hooves for cuts or stone bruises. Does all this seem strange to you? Dernick carefully lowered the leg of the patient horse he was checking. All what, Garion? He asked, his plain face sober. Everything, Garion said rather vaguely. This journey, Barak and Silk, Mr. Wolf and Aunt Pole, all of it. They all talk sometimes when they don't think I can hear them. This all seems terribly important, but I can't tell if we're running away from someone or looking for something. It's confusing to me as well, Garion, Dernick admitted. Many things aren't what they seem. Not what they seem at all. Does Aunt Pole seem different to you? Garion asked. What I mean is, they all treat her as if she were a noblewoman or something, and she acts differently too, now that we're away from Falder's farm. Mistress Pole is a great lady, Dernick said. I've always known that. His voice had that same respectful tone it always had when he spoke of her, and Gary knew that it was useless to try to make Dernick perceive anything unusual about her. And Mr. Wolf, Garion said, trying another attack. I always thought he was just an old storyteller. He doesn't seem to be an ordinary vagabond, Dernick admitted. I think we've fallen in with important people, Garion, on important business. It's probably better for simple folks such as you and me not to ask too many questions, but to keep our eyes and ears open. Will you be going back to Falder's farm when this is all over? Garion asked carefully. Dernick considered that, looking out across the rain-swept courtyard of the inn. No, he said finally in a soft voice. I'll follow as long as Mistress Pole allows me to. On an impulse, Garion reached out and patted the smith's shoulder. Everything's going to turn out for the best, Dernick. Dernick sighed. Let's hope so, he said, and he turned his attention back to the horses. Dernick, Garion asked. Did you know my parents? No, Dernick said. The first time I saw you, you were a baby in Mistress Pole's arms. What was she like back then? She seemed angry, Dernick said. I don't think I've ever seen anyone quite so angry. She talked with Falder for a while and then went to work in the kitchen. You know Falder. He never turned anyone away in his whole life. At first she was just a helper, but that didn't last too long. Our old cook was getting fat and lazy, and she finally went off to live with her youngest daughter. After that, Mistress Pole ran the kitchen. She was a lot younger then, wasn't she? Garion asked. No, Dernick said thoughtfully. Mistress Pole never changes. She looks exactly the same now as she did that first day. I'm sure it only seems that way, Garion said. Everybody gets older. Not Mistress Pole, Dernick said. That evening, Wolf and his sharp-nosed friend returned, their faces somber. Nothing, Wolf announced shortly, scratching at his snowy beard. I might have told you that, Aunt Pole sniffed. Wolf gave her an irritated look, then shrugged. We had to be certain, he said. The red-bearded giant Barak looked up from the mail shirt he was polishing. No trace at all, he asked. Not a hint, Wolf said. He hasn't gone through here. Where now, then? Barak asked, setting his mail shirt aside. Muros, Wolf said. Barak rose and went to the window. The rain's slacking, he said, but the roads are going to be difficult. We won't be able to leave tomorrow anyway, Silk said, lounging on a stool near the door. I have to dispose of our turnips. If we carry them out of Doreen with us, it'll seem curious, and we don't want to be remembered by anyone who might have occasion to talk to any wandering Murgo. I suppose you're right, Wolf said. I hate to lose the time, but there's no help for it. The roads will be better after a day's drying, Silk pointed out. And wagons travel fast or empty. Are you sure you can sell them, friend Silk? Dernick asked. I'm a Drasnian, Silk replied confidently. I can sell anything. We might even make a good profit. Silk sounds like a big shot. Not that I've played Deltarune. I will do that for the channel someday. I've saved playing it for a special occasion. And what special occasion there is, then? Christmas time. So, look forward to that. That'd be cool. There's lots of voice acting involved. More chances for me to show off. Oh man, I went ham for Born of Bread. I suppose we'll have to then. It'll be really funny. I had this silly idea. No. I'll hold off on the silly idea. Yeah, for Christmas. It'll be perfect. So, I'm a Drasnian, Silk replied confidently. I can sell anything. We might even make a good profit. That silly idea? We'll get there. Don't worry about that, Wolf said. The turnips have served their purpose. All we need to do now is to get rid of them. It's a matter of principle, Silk said airily. Besides, if I don't try to strike a hard bargain, that'd be remembered too. Don't be concerned. The business won't take long and won't delay us. Could I go along with you, Silk? Garion asked hopefully. I haven't seen any part of Doreen except for this inn. Silk looked inquiringly at Aunt Pole. She considered for a moment. I don't suppose it'll do any harm, she said, and it'll give me time to attend to some things. The next morning, after breakfast, Silk and Garion set out, with Garion carrying a bag of turnips. The small man seemed to be in extraordinarily good spirits, and his long, pointed nose seemed almost to quiver. Which is a weird sentence when you think about it. The whole point, he said as they walked along the littered cobblestone streets, is not to appear too eager to sell, and to know the market, of course. That sounds reasonable, Garion said politely. Yesterday I made a few inquiries, Silk went on. Turnips are selling on the docks of Kotu and Dresnia for a Dresnian silver link per hundredweight. A what? Garion asked. It's a Dresnian coin, Silk explained. About the same as a silver imperial. Not quite, but close enough. The merchant will try to buy our turnips for no more than a quarter of that, but he'll go as high as half. How do you know that? It's customary. How many turnips do we have? Garion asked, stepping around a pile of refuse in the street. 30 hundredweight, Silk said. That would be... Garion's face contorted in an effort to make the complex calculation in his head. 15 imperials, Silk supplied, or 3 gold crowns. Gold? Garion asked. Because gold coins were so rare in country dealings, the word seemed to have an almost magic quality. Silk nodded. It's always preferable, he said. It's easier to carry. The weight of silver becomes burdensome. How much did we pay for the turnips? 5 imperials, Silk said. The farmer gets 5, we get 15, and the merchant gets 30? Garion asked incredulously. That hardly seems fair. Silk shrugged. It's the way things are, he said. There's the merchant's house. He pointed at the rather imposing building with broad steps. When we go in, he'll pretend to be very busy and not at all interested in us. Later, while he and I are bargaining, he'll notice you and tell you what a splendid boy you are. Me? He'll think you're some relation of mine, a son or a nephew perhaps, and he'll think to gain advantage over me by flattering you. What a strange notion, Garion said. I'll tell him many things, Silk went on, talking very rapidly now. His eyes seemed to glitter, and his nose was actually twitching. Pay no attention to what I say, and don't let any surprise show on your face. He'll be watching us both very closely. You're going to lie? Garion was shocked. It's expected, Silk said. He'll lie too. The one of us who lies the best will get the better of the bargain. It all seems terribly involved, Garion said. It's a game, Silk said, his ferret-like face breaking into a grin. A very exciting game that's played all over the world. Good players get rich, and bad players don't. Are you a good player? Garion asked. One of the best, Silk replied modestly. Let's go in. And he led Garion up the broad steps to the merchant's house. The merchant wore an unbelted, fur-trimmed gown of a pale green color and a close-fitting cap. He behaved much as Silk had predicted that he would, sitting before a plain table and leafing through many scraps of parchment with a busy frown on his face, while Silk and Garion waited for him to notice them. Very well, then, he said finally. You have business with me? We have some turnips, Silk said somewhat deprecatingly. That's truly unfortunate, friend, the merchant said, assuming a long face. The wharves at Coty groan with turnips just now. It'd hardly pay me to take them off your hands at any price. Permission to backseat and listen to my narration while working on your assignment? Permission granted, Draco. Welcome in. Enjoy your stay, and I hope you have a lovely evening as you listen and get your assignment done. I'll be here with you for a few hours yet. The wharves at Kotu groan with turnips just now. It'd hardly pay me to take them off your hands at any price. Silk shrugged. Perhaps the Turex or the Algars then, he said. Their markets may not yet be as glutted as yours. He turned. Come along, boy, he said to Garion. Apple. Apple. Hello, Apple commenter. You've done your job very well. A moment, good friend, the merchant said. I detect from your speech that you and I are countrymen. They did the thing? Yeah, they did the thing. Perhaps as a favor, I'll look at your turnips. Your time's valuable, Silk said. If you aren't in the market for turnips, why should we trouble you further? Hello there, Ace Suave. We are, in fact, reading books, and thank you for the follow. We are currently reading The Pawn of Prophecy, the first of a series of 5 books called the Belgariad. We're currently on chapter 7, and we're making our progress slowly but surely. It's my favorite series. Your time's valuable, Silk said. If you aren't in the market for turnips, why should we trouble you further? I might still be able to find a buyer somewhere, the merchant protested. If the merchandise is of good quality. He took the bag from Garion and opened it. Garion listened with fascination as Silk and the merchant fenced politely with each other, each attempting to gain the advantage. You know, you just joined the stream for like 10 seconds, but you're already loving it? Thank you, Ace. That means a lot, honestly. I really do hope you enjoy your stay. What a splendid boy this is, the merchant said, suddenly seeming to notice Garion for the first time. An orphan, Silk said, placed in my care. I am attempting to teach him the rudiments of business, but he's slow to learn. Ah, the merchant said, sounding slightly disappointed. Then Silk made a curious gesture with the fingers of his right hand. The merchant's eyes widened slightly, then he too gestured. After that, Garion had no idea what was going on. The hands of Silk and the merchant wove intricate designs in the air, sometimes flickering so rapidly that the eye could scarce follow them. Silk's long, slender fingers seemed to dance, and the merchant's eyes were fixed upon them, his forehead breaking into a sweat at the intensity of his concentration. Done then? Silk said finally, breaking the long silence in the room. Done, the merchant agreed, somewhat ruefully. It's always a pleasure doing business with an honest man, Silk said. Sounds like a lot of eyes are falling off. Is he casting a spell? Kinda. Money spell. It's always a pleasure doing business with an honest man, Silk said. I've learned much today, the merchant said. I hope you don't intend to remain in this business for long, friend. If you do, I might as well just give you the keys to my warehouse and strongroom right now and save myself the anguish I'll experience every time you appear. Silk laughed. You've been a worthy opponent, friend merchant, he said. I thought so at first, the merchant said, shaking his head, but I'm no match for you. Deliver your turnips to my warehouse on Beddick Wharf tomorrow morning. He scratched a few lines on a piece of parchment with a quill. My overseer will pay you. Silk bowed and took the parchment. Come along, boy, he said to Garion, and led the way from the room. What happened? Garion asked, when they were outside in the blustery street. Silk just has aura? Oh, yeah. What happened? Garion asked, when they were outside in the blustery street. We got the price I wanted, Silk said, somewhat smugly. But you didn't say anything, Garion objected. We spoke at great length, Garion, Silk said. Weren't you watching? All I saw was the two of you wiggling your fingers at each other. That's how we spoke, Silk explained. It's a separate language my countrymen devised thousands of years ago. It's called the secret language, and it's much faster than the spoken one. It also permits us to speak in the presence of strangers without being overheard. An adept can conduct business while discussing the weather, if he chooses. Will you teach it to me? Garion asked, fascinated. Speaking with fingers is crazy, but also, we kinda do it all the time, because I guess the Drasnians invented sign language. Will you teach it to me? Garion asked, fascinated. ASL? It takes a long time to learn, Silk told him. Isn't the trip to Muros likely to take a long time? Garion suggested. Silk shrugged. As you wish, he said. It won't be easy, but it'll help pass the time, I suppose. Are we going back to the inn now? Garion asked. I mean, to be fair, it is sort of mystified as the secret language, imagining just wiggling fingers around with cool designs. And Jam Jam, we are reading The Pawn of Prophecy, of the first book in my favorite series. Chapter 7. Don't worry, we will get to the Odyssey after this. I know that's what you're here for. And me. Yeah, I picked up a copy, although I noticed with my copy of the Odyssey, everything is Roman as opposed to Greek, and all the names and stuff. Ooh, it's a toughie to read, but we'll do it all the same. Are we going back to the inn now? Garion asked. Not right away, Silk said. We'll need a cargo to explain our entry into Muros. I thought we were going to leave the wagons empty. We are, but you just said, we'll see a merchant I know, Silk explained. He buys farm goods all over Sindaria and has them held on farms until the markets are right in Arendia and Tolnedra. Then he arranges to have them freighted either to Muros or Kamar. It sounds very complicated, Garion said doubtfully. Thank you, Jam Jam. It sounds very complicated, Garion said doubtfully. It's not really, Silk assured him. Come along, my boy. You'll see. The merchant was a Tolnedran who wore a flowing blue robe and a disdainful expression on his face. He was talking with a grim-faced Murgo as Silk and Garion entered his counting room. The Murgo, like all of his race Garion had ever seen, had deep scars on his face, and his black eyes were penetrating. Silk touched Garion's shoulder with a cautionary hand when they entered and saw the Murgo. Then he stepped forward. "Forgive me, noble merchant," he said ingratiatingly. "I didn't know you were occupied. My porter and I'll wait outside until you have time for us." "My friend and I'll be busy for most of the day," the Tolnedran said. "Is it something important?" "I was just wondering if you might have a cargo for me," Silk replied. "No," the Tolnedran said shortly. "Nothing." He started to turn back to the Murgo, then stopped and looked sharply at Silk. "Aren't you Ambar of Kotu?" he asked. "I thought you dealt in spices." Garion recognized the name Silk had given the watchman at the gates of the city. It was evident that the little man had used the name before. "Alas," Silk sighed, "my last venture lies at the bottom of the sea just off the hook of Arendia. 2 full shiploads bound for Tolhol Neth. A sudden storm, and I'm a pauper." "A tragic tale, worthy Ambar," the Tolnedran master merchant said, somewhat smugly. "I'm now reduced to freighting produce," Silk said morosely. "I have 3 rickety wagons, and that's all that's left of the empire of Ambar of Kotu." "Reverses come to us all," the Tolnedran said philosophically. "So this is the famous Ambar of Kotu," the Murgo said, his harshly accented voice quite soft. He looked Silk up and down, his black eyes probing. "It was a fortunate chance that brought me out today. I am enriched by meeting so illustrious a man." Silk bowed politely. "You're too kind, noble sir," he said. "I am Asharak of Rakoska," the Murgo introduced himself. W accent, thank you. He turned to the Tolnedran. "We can put aside our discussion for a bit, Mingan," he said. "We'll accrue much honor by assisting so great a merchant to begin recouping his losses." I love how naturally the world building is introduced. Oh yeah, it's so good. "You're too kind, worthy Asharak," Silk said, bowing again. Garion's mind was shrieking all kinds of warnings, but the Murgo's sharp eyes made it impossible for him to make the slightest gesture to Silk. He kept his face impassive and his eyes dull, even as his thoughts were red. Have I thought of becoming a voice actor? Oh yeah. That's the dream, honestly. That's a long and involved story, but we have time. Might as well tell it. I've always loved voice acting ever since I was a tiny tot, watching shows and playing video games. Just after hearing voices and realize that, people make those sounds and tones, I always wanted to be one. Because my voice is so soothing, thank you. It kind of goes a little wild as well. If you would like an example, you can look at the previous VOD from Friday, where I played a game called Born of Bread. I went a little nuts, admittedly, but it was a fun time. Even so, it was very pleasing. Thank you, Milan. And almost every 2 weeks on Mondays, I go to a voice acting workshop as well. So, I'm getting good practice in, and once 2025 hits, we'll see if I'm able to get classes with Richard Horvitz. I signed up and, well, I'm in the listing, so hopefully that works out too. So it's either Hall of Fame Crash Out or Relaxing Merchant. I mean, alright, let's break the immersion for a quick second. So right now I'm using my normal microphone, but I do have some filters on it. So, while I'm speaking gently, and it sounds nice like this, at the same time, if I were to change it to just the bass microphone, it instead was not captured at all. Well, that makes me feel bad. Oh, I see what happened now. So, it would normally sound like this instead. Isn't it always funny when you run into technical difficulties? But this is what I normally sound like, or at least what the microphone captures. And we go from this back to this using the binaural feature on this microphone. So I can go over here, or I can go over here. And that's not even looking at the other microphone. Ooh boy. Yeah. The other microphone honestly scares me. That's the one for like super ASMR, like the normal stuff with the whispering and the hearing sounds and, you know, like keyboard clickies. You can hear the skin rubbing on my fingers, and it's very, very intense. Yeah, the stuff Wampus does, I've done it on occasion, but it's rare for me because it does scare me. It's like the 60 FPS of audio. That's pretty true. But listen, sometimes... So you can hear myself breathing? Yeah. Can hear myself breathing, can hear myself moving, can hear the tiniest sounds captured throughout my room. And it's especially bad if I accidentally punch the mic. It's awful. It's kind of trippy. I've received a lot of compliments when I do it, but I'm still scared. But we'll do it. No wonder I keep it hidden like a secret weapon. Here, I'll give you guys a taste. I apologize in advance. That's the trump card. All right. One moment. Hello. How are you doing today? Hi, everybody. Hi. So you can see just how effective it is. So that is that one. Now I could do like the whispery breathing and stuff and like do that while reading. Check ASMR. He doesn't make too much noise though, is the problem. But yeah, when I'm reading, I do like to add in the verve, I have the bit of the rumble going on. So I feel like for reading, this setting is the best. But when playing games, we use this instead, so that way I can be a bit louder and, scream and have fun and not blow people's ears out. And OBS does not currently have my XLR microphone set up either. But it's there. Right over there. So technically, yes. I have three microphones at my desk. It's watching, waiting. It kind of does look like it's watching, honestly. It's a big giant. I have a cover for it. Like what's it called? You've seen people scream out of nowhere in their ASMR videos. I try to avoid that as much as possible. The vibes that I want are cozy, calm, relaxing. Like, the whole point of me doing this is that I want people to, have fun, enjoy, and maybe fall asleep too. Be so betrayed? Oh yeah. And anytime I accidentally hit that other microphone, because I'm clumsy sometimes, I might accidentally just tap the microphone. There's tears in chat. I'm just like, no, I'm sorry. And oh, how silly. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed this small excursion in learning how we do things around here. Welcome to my world. It's weird. Very educational indeed. And now, back to the book. Garion's mind was shrieking all kinds of warnings, but the Murgo's sharp eyes made it impossible for him to make the slightest gesture to Silk. He kept his face impassive and his eyes dull, even as his thoughts raced. I'd gladly help you, my friend, Mingan said, but I have no cargo in Doreen at the moment. I'm already committed from Doreen to Medalia, Silk said quickly. 3 wagon loads of Trek iron. And I also have a contract to move furs from Muros to Kamar. It's 50 leagues from Medalia to Muros that concerns me. Wagons traveling empty earn no profit. Medalia. Mingan frowned. Let me examine my records. Also, Hyacinth, thank you for the follow and welcome in. Oh, that's a moan emote. I'm glad you enjoyed Wampus. Hello, welcome in. Hope you enjoy your stay. Why am I singing? Sorry. Yeah, of course. Currently, we are reading The Pawn of Prophecy, Chapter 7, in the Belgariad series. Afterwards, I will go back and read the next chapter we have planned for the Odyssey. So, hopefully you stick around and enjoy. You didn't know it was a moan sticker. You'll be listening quietly along? Sounds good to me. Enjoy your stay. I'm the prophecy? It's me. I'm the prophecy. Okay, I'll stop playing. Medalia, Mingan frowned. Let me examine my records. It seems to me that I do have something there. He stepped out of the room. Your exploits are legendary in the kingdoms of the East, Ambar, Ashrak of Rekoska said admiringly. When I last left Kothol Murgos, there was still a kingly price on your hand. Silk laughed easily. A minor misunderstanding, Asherak, he said. I was merely investigating the extent of Tolnadran intelligence gathering activities in your kingdom. I took some chances I probably shouldn't have, and the Tolnedrans found out what I was up to. The charges they leveled at me were fabrications. How did you manage to escape? Asherak asked. The soldiers of King Tar Urgas nearly dismantled the kingdom searching for you. I chanced to meet a Tholish lady of high station, Silk said. I managed to prevail upon her to smuggle me across the border into Mishrak ak Thol. Ah, Asherak said, smiling briefly. Tholish ladies are notoriously easy to prevail upon, but most demanding, Silk said. They expect full repayment for any favors. I found it more difficult to escape from her than I did from Cathol Murgos. Do you still perform such services for your government? Asherak asked casually. They won't even talk to me, Silk said with a gloomy expression. Ambar the spice merchant is useful to them, but Ambar the poor wagoner is quite another thing. Repayment? Wink, wink. You got it. I'm so glad my eyebrows work. Of course, Asherak said, and his tone indicated that he obviously did not believe what he had been told. He glanced briefly and without seeming interest at Garion, and Garion felt a strange shock of recognition. Without knowing exactly how it was that he knew, he was instantly sure that Asherak of Rekgoska had known him for all his life. There was a familiarity in that glance, a familiarity that had grown out of the dozen times or more that their eyes had met while Garion was growing up, and Asherak, muffled always in a black cloak and astride a black horse, had stopped and watched and then moved on. Top 10 cast quotes. Oh, we'll keep a record. Garion returned the gaze without expression, and the faintest hint of a smile flickered across Asherak's scarred face. Mingan returned to the room then. I have some hams on a farm near Medallia, he announced. When do you expect to arrive in Muros? 15 or 20 days, Silk told him. Mingan nodded. I'll give you a contract to move my hams to Muros, he offered. 7 silver nobles per wagon load. Tolnedra nobles or Sandarian? Silk asked quickly. This is Sandaria, worthy Ambar. We're citizens of the world, noble merchant, Silk pointed out. Transactions between us have always been in Tolnedran coin. Mingan sighed. You were ever quick, worthy Ambar, he said. Very well, Tolnedran nobles, because we're old friends, and I grieve for your misfortunes. Perhaps we'll meet again, Ambar, Asherak said. Perhaps, Silk said, and he and Garion left the counting room. Skinflint, Silk muttered when they reached the street. The rate should have been 10, not 7. What about the Murgo? Garion asked. Once again there was the familiar reluctance to reveal too much about this strange unspoken link that had existed between him and the figure that now at least had a name. Silk shrugged. He knows I'm up to something, but he doesn't know exactly what, just as I know that he's up to something. I've had dozens of meetings like that. Unless our purposes happen to collide, we won't interfere with each other. Asherak and I are both professionals. You're a very strange person, Silk, Garion said. Silk winked at him. Why were you and Mingan arguing about the coins? Garion asked. Tolnedran coins are a bit purer, Silk told him. They're worth more. I see, Garion said. All right, everyone. It's been about an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. If you haven't already, now's a good time to get some water, have a little stretch, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I'll see you then, everyone. Be right back. Do I think cereal is soup? The answer to that is yes. Not gonna lie, my character has aura. Thank you, Ace. Thank you, Hyacinth. It's good to be back. Just as a hot dog is in fact a sandwich, and coffee is just bean soup. And with that cursed information out of the way, how are you all doing today? That's right. Is anyone excited for this week? You've seen people eat hot cereal? Yeah. We call that oatmeal. You're excited for the money. Hey. I do not get paid this week, but we do have a nice long vacation for me. So there will be plenty more streams coming up. So I'm happy. And of course, the presents, spending time with loved ones. It truly is a wonderful time of the year. So I'm excited. I find it interesting how it seemed so far away, and the next thing you know, Christmas is literally like 3 to 2 days away, depending on your time zone. Why did that sound magical? Well, it kind of is when you think about it. It's the holiday spirit communicating through us right now. Too true. I should find a Santa hat to put on. You're excited for the food? Ooh, that's a very good thing to be excited about. But you hate the cold weather? That's very fair. I do dislike the cold. But, I guess I would rather have the cold than the heat, personally. Being that I live in a desert, yeah, it gets very, very hot. It's summer here? Dang. That sounds nice. Gotta migrate over to Mylon. Alright, everyone. Be settled in. Nice, cozy, and relaxed. Because, as it turns out, it's time to go back in to the book. Borders are open? Nice. Streaming inside a desert storm, it's happened before. The wind's whipping up, furiously pelting against the walls, sand streaming across the way. We like alliteration here. Anyways, here we go. The next morning, they all mounted the wagons again and delivered the turnips to the warehouse of the Draznian merchant. Then, their wagons rumbling emptily, they rolled out of Doreen, bound toward the south. The rain had ceased, but the morning was overcast and blustery. Do I have a YouTube channel? Sure do. In fact, I'm streaming on there right now as well. If you look towards this side of the screen, that right there, that's YouTube chat. And you guys over here are the Twitch chat. So that way, everyone's all here together. I do have a YouTube channel, though, where I do post any of the VODs that are here, and I will eventually get to editing the videos down proper. So that way they're appropriately sized and meaty and what am I trying to say? I can keep things separate and organized, like all my readings of the Belgariad, the Odyssey, keep those separate. Yeah. And of course, make nice YouTube exclusive videos. Hello there, Brandon. Good to see you there, Ace. And now you get to experience the delay. There is a heavy amount of delay when I stream to YouTube, but hopefully it won't be that bad. Sounds good, by the way? Wonderful. And I'm glad you finally got to kill that darn mosquito. Never liked him. Never liked him. The rain had ceased, but the morning was overcast and blustery. You feel very special now? Good, you should. You're a very important part of the stream right now. Why? Because you're here. And that's what's important. On the hill outside town, Silk turned to Garion, who rode beside him. Very well, he said. Let's begin. He moved his fingers in front of Garion's face. This means good morning. Oh, well, turns out that was actually just the end of the chapter. And so ends chapter 7 of The Pawn of Prophecy. Yeah, I got bamboozled. They had a page break there. Feel like you're a little kid interacting with the stream? Nah. Unless it's the giddiness, in which case, yeah, have fun. Be happy and enjoy. That's the vibes we're going for. Well, as I promised, when I finished reading the chapter, we would now move on to Homer's The Odyssey. Where we last left off, we are now in Book 4, The Visit to King Menelaus, who tells his story. Meanwhile, the suitors in Ithaca plot against Telemachus. They reached the low-lying city of Lacedaemon, where they drove straight to the abode of Menelaus and found him in his own house, feasting with his many clansmen in honor of the wedding of his son, and also of his daughter, whom he was marrying to the son of that valiant warrior, Achilles. Ah, you're back just in time, Jam Jam. He had given his consent and promised her to him while he was still at Troy, and now the gods were bringing the marriage about, so he was sending her with chariots and horses to the city of the Myrmidons, over whom Achilles' son was reigning. Perfect timing, Jam Jam? That's right. For his only son, he had found a bride from Sparta, the daughter of Elector. The son, Megapenthes, was born to him of a bondwoman, for heaven vouchsafed Helen no more children after she had borne Hermione, who was fair as golden Venus herself. So the neighbors and kinsmen of Menelaus were feasting and making merry in his house. There was a bard also to sing to them and play his lyre, while 2 tumblers went about performing in the midst of them, while the man struck up with his tune. Telemachus and the son of Nestor stayed their horses at the gate, whereon Etonius, servant to Menelaus, came out, and as soon as he saw them, ran hurrying back into his house to tell his master. He went close up to him and said, Menelaus, there are some strangers come here, 2 men who look like sons of Jove. What are we to do? Shall we take their horses out, or tell them to find friends elsewhere as they best can? Menelaus was very angry and said, Eteonius, son of Boethus, you never used to be a fool, but now you talk like a simpleton. Take their horses out, of course, and show the strangers in that they may have supper. You and I have stayed often enough at other people's houses before we got back here, where heaven grant that we may rest in peace henceforward. So Eteonius bustled back and bade the other servants come with him. They took their sweating steeds from under the yoke and made them fast to the mangers, and gave them a feed of oats and barley mixed. Then they leaned the chariot against the end wall of the courtyard and led the way into the house. Telemachus and Pisistratus were astonished when they saw it, for its splendor was as that of the sun and moon. Then, when they had admired everything to their heart's content, they went into the bathroom and washed themselves. Would I live in this world, a world of gods and monsters, and grudges, and of man? Would I live in such a world of mythology? Maybe. People get cool powers all the time. If you have the favor of the gods, all things lie in your favor. But then when you die, you do go to Hades, which isn't exactly the best, but sometimes it's nice if you're a hero. When the servants had washed them and anointed them with oil, they brought them woolen cloaks and shirts, and the 2 took their seats by the side of Menelaus. A maidservant brought them water in a beautiful golden ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands. Hero or villain, you shall be historical. Allegorical, even. And she drew a clean table beside them. An upper servant brought them bread, and offered them many good things of what there was in the house, while the carver fetched them plates of all manner of meats, and set cups of gold by their side. Menelaus then greeted them, saying, Fall to, and welcome. When you have done supper, I shall ask you who you are, for the lineage of such men as you cannot have been lost. You must be descended from a line of scepter-bearing kings, for poor people do not have such sons as you are. On this, he handed them a piece of fat roast loin, which had been set near him as being a prime part, and they laid their hands on the good things that were before them. As soon as they had had enough to eat and drink, Telemachus said to the son of Nestor, with his head so close that no one might hear, Look, Pisistratus, man after my own heart, see the gleam of bronze and gold, of amber, ivory, and silver. Everything is so splendid that it is like seeing a palace of Olympian Jove. I am lost in admiration. Menelaus overheard him and said, No one, my sons, can hold his own with Jove, for his house and everything about him is immortal. But among mortal men, well, there may be another who has as much wealth as I have, or there may not. Yeah, A Suave and V Brandon, they are one and the same, both on YouTube and on Twitch, caught between two worlds. Jam Jam, you're so sweet. Did you know that Jam Jam also makes fantastic cookies? And loves cute animals, which is every animal. But at all events, I have traveled much and have undergone much hardship, for it was nearly 8 years before I could get home with my fleet. I went to Cyprus, Phoenicia, and the Egyptians. Cockroaches are insects, not animals. From what you've seen so far, everyone here is super talented. That is true. For some reason, I seem to have accrued a following of fantastic viewers and followers that just everyone's been so nice and sweet, artistically talented, or even just full of such good ideas and imagination. It's been a blessing and a joy to have everyone here. It's made every stream incredible. Actually, no, Jam Jam is correct about that. I've seen the pictures. Their backyard is full of animals. Hi, Cassandras. Good to see you. Welcome in. Hello to the other Cass. Jam Jam got a zoo in the backyard. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You got a baby bear? Hello from the other cast. Sadly, you had no pictures. That's okay. You'll take them in time. I can believe that, though. You've had a lot of strange creatures in your backyard. It was so cute and fat. I went to Cyprus, Phoenicia, and the Egyptians. I went also to the Ethiopians, the Sidonians, and the Erembians, and to Libya, where the lambs have horns as soon as they are born, and the sheep lamb down 3 times a year. Everyone in that country, whether master or man, has plenty of cheese, meat, and good milk, for the ewes yield all year round. But while I was traveling and getting great riches among these people, my brother was secretly and shockingly murdered through the perfidy of his wicked wife, so that I have no pleasure in being lord of all this wealth. Maybe Jam Jam has the blood of a Disney princess? I can believe that. Ace, you're big silly. Whoever your parents may be, they must have told you about all this, and of my heavy loss in the ruin of a stately mansion fully and magnificently furnished. Would that I had only a third of what I now have, so that I had stayed at home, and all those were living who perished on the plain of Troy, far from Argos. I often grieve as I sit here in my house for one and all of them. At times I cried aloud in sorrow, but presently I leave off again, for crying is cold comfort, and one soon tires of it. Yet grieve for these as I may, I do so for one man more than for all them all. I cannot even think of him, without loathing both food and sleep. So miserable does he make me, for no one of all the Achaeans worked so hard or risked so much that he did. He took nothing by it, and has left a legacy of sorrow to myself. For he has been gone a long time, and we know not whether he is alive or dead. His old father, his long-suffering wife Penelope, and his son Telemachus, whom he left behind an infant in arms, are plunged in grief on his account. It's kind of funny because he is talking to Telemachus. Whoops. Thus spoke Menelaus, and the heart of Telemachus yearned as he bethought him of his father. Tears fell from his eyes as he heard him thus mentioned. It's pronounced Telemachus. Fair enough. Telemachus. Telemachus sounds much nicer, though, but fair enough. Not to nitpick, just a Greek lore dork. That's fair. I wish I'd gotten the Greek copy of this, honestly. It's messing me up. Everything's all weird, and Zeus is referred to as Jove. It's odd. Telemachus. Tears fell from his eyes as he heard him thus mentioned. The Greek copy better? I just feel I would be more comfortable with it. Because, like, Zeus and Athena and all the other, Greek names. I was never one for Roman lore. Jove with a V. Anyways, tears fell from his eyes as he heard him thus mentioned, so that he held his cloak before his face with both hands. When Menelaus saw this, he doubted whether to let him choose his own time for speaking, or to ask him at once and find out what it was all about. While he was thus in two minds, Helen came down from her high vaulted and perfumed room, looking as lovely as Diana herself. Adraste brought her a seat. Alcippe a soft woolen rug, and Philo fetched her a silver workbox which Alcandra, wife of Polybus, had given her. Polybus lived in Egyptian Thebes, which is the richest city in the whole world. He gave Menelaus 2 baths, both of pure silver, 2 tripods, and 10 talents of gold. Besides all this, his wife gave Helen some beautiful presents, to wit, a golden distaff and a silver workbox that ran on wheels with a gold band round the top of it. What are you guys doing? Why would I be the father of a bear that is apparently being named after me? And oh, you're all so silly. Philo now placed this by her side, full of fine spun yarn, and a distaff charged with violet-colored wool was laid on the top of it. Then Helen took her seat, put her feet upon the footstool, and began to question her husband. "Do we know, Menelaus," said she, "the names of these strangers who have come to visit us? Shall I guess right or wrong? But I cannot help saying what I think. Never yet have I seen either man or woman so like somebody else. Indeed, when I look at him, I hardly know what to think. Had a fox show up this morning? Ah, As this young man is. Scrolls up. Hold on. Telemachus. Oh, that's so hard to say. That... As this young man is like Telemachus, whom Ulysses left as a baby behind him, when you Achaeans went to Troy with battle in your hearts, on account of my most shameless self. Tell him whatever. My dear wife, replied Menelaus, I see the likeness just as you do. His hands and feet are just like Ulysses, so is his hair, and the shape of his head and the expression of his eyes. Moreover, when I was talking about Ulysses, and saying how much he had suffered on my account, tears fell from his eyes, and he hid his face in his mantle. Then Pisistratus said, Menelaus, son of Atreus, you are right in thinking that this man is Telemachus. But he is very modest, and is ashamed to come here and begin opening up discourse with one whose conversation is so divinely interesting as your own. My father, Nestor, sent me to escort him hither, for he wanted to know whether you could give him any counsel or suggestion. A son has always trouble at home when his father has gone away, leaving him without supporters. And this is how Telemachus is now placed, for his father is absent, and there is no one among his own people to stand by him. Hyenas sound like they're laughing. It's true. Cass father. Bless my heart, replied Menelaus. Then I am receiving a visit from the son of a very dear friend, who suffered much hardship for my sake. I had always hoped to entertain him with most marked distinction when heavens had granted us a safe return from beyond the seas. Am I Jack's dad? No. I'm more like a brother to him. I would say that my dad is more like Jack's dad at this point. Stepdad, adopted father. We take care of him. Jack is the name of my Chihuahua. We did not name him this, but it's a cute name for him all the same. My nephew was very, very obsessed with The Incredibles. So, but now we take care of him, and we keep the name. Jack needs a puppy meal. Jack has had enough today. Jack the Reaper. I mean, he'll probably reap your hearts with those big ol' eyes of his. He's very adorable, and so very, very sweet. The nicest, softest puppy one could ever find. Unless you bring another dog near him. Anything else, though, he's a wondrous treat to have around. I should have founded a city for him in Argos and built him a house. I should have made him leave Ithaca with his goods, his son, and all his people, and should have sacked for them some one of the neighboring cities that are subject to me. We should thus have seen one another continually, and nothing but death could have interrupted so close and happy an intercourse. I suppose, however, that heaven grudged us such great good fortune, for it has prevented the poor fellow from ever getting home at all. Halloween kid. You attempted to kidnap my dog and steal from my candy bowl. Oh, Jam. Listen, that's the book, not me. Literally says, and nothing but death could have interrupted so close and happy an intercourse. I suppose, however, that heaven grudged us such great good fortune, for it has prevented the poor fellow from ever getting home at all. Thus did he speak, and his words set them all a-weeping. Helen wept, Telemachus wept, and so did Menelaus, nor could Pisistratus keep his eyes from filling when he remembered his dear brother Antilochus. Cass, did I say that right? I'm gonna have you spell check me from now on for any names inside the Odyssey. If you're still here, of course. If not, I get to keep mispronouncing them. Listen, I had to defend my puppo. He's a good boy. Let's see. Nor could Pisistratus keep his eyes from filling when he remembered his dear brother Antilochus, whom the son of bright dawn had killed. Thereon he said to Menelaus, "A good boy for me?" Oh no, that's a dangerous sentence to say, you know that. Sir, my father Nestor, when we used to talk about you at home, told me you were a person of rare and excellent understanding. If, then, it be possible, do as I would urge you. I am not fond of crying while I am getting my supper. I'd have to toddle off for now, but have a good rest of the stream. Will do, Hyacinth, and thank you for coming by and for the follow. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening. And when you go to bed, I hope you have sweet, sweet dreams. Take care. And thank you again. Morning will come in due course, and in the forenoon I care not how much I cry for those that are dead and gone. Yeah, happy holidays. This is all we can do for the poor things. I mean, at least it is a wee full of fiber, Ace. We can only shave our heads for them and wring the tears from our cheeks. I had a brother who died at Troy. He was by no means the worst man there. You are sure to have known him. His name was Antilochus. I never set eyes upon him myself, but they say that he was singularly fleet of foot and in fight valiant. Do I have Christmas cookies? I actually have a small box of gingerbread cookies, shaped like little gingerbread men. They're very tasty, actually. Your discretion, my friend, answered Menelaus, is beyond your years. It is plain you take after your father. One can soon see when a man is son to one whom heaven has blessed, both as regards wife and offspring. And it has blessed Nestor from first to last all his days, giving him a green old age in his own house, with sons about him, who are both well-disposed and valiant. You might have to sneak in like the Grinch and steal my cookies. No, everyone steals my sweet treats. Santa Claus is coming for the cookies. Christmas cookies for Jack Jack? I don't think I'll give him any. I don't want to give him sweets. I'll give him a treat, though. You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. My cookies are in danger, that's why. We will put an end Therefore, to all this weeping, and attend to our supper again, let water be poured over our hands. Telemachus and I can talk with one another fully in the morning. Oh, you guys. On this, Asphalion, one of the servants poured water over their hands, and they laid their hands on the good things that were before them. Then Jove's daughter Helen bethought her of another matter. She drugged the wine with an herb that banishes all care, sorrow, and ill humor. Whoever drinks wine thus drugged cannot shed a single tear all the rest of the day, not even though his father or mother, both of them, drop down dead, or sees a brother or son hewn in pieces before his very eyes. That's a scary drug. Have to be careful for explicit words and noises. Lately, YouTube is doing mass reports and deletions to multiple ASMRrp vids and channels. I did hear about that. It is truly unfortunate. You are right about that, Draco. Luckily, I feel like we're doing okay over here so far. I haven't done anything too explicit. I try not to, for sure. You would definitely wash your hands before touching Jack Jack? Thank you, Draco, for the warning. It'll go a long way, for sure. This drug of such sovereign power and virtue had been given to Helen by Polydamna, wife of Thon, a woman of Egypt, where there grow all sorts of herbs, some good to put into the mixing bowl, and others poisonous. Moreover, every one in the whole country is a skilled physician, for they are of the race of Paeon. When Helen had put this drug in the bowl, and had told the servants to serve the wine round, she said, Menelaus, son of Atreus, and you, my good friends, sons of honorable men, which is as Jove wills, for he is the giver both of good and evil, and can do what he chooses. Feasts here as you will, and listen while I tell you a tale in season. I cannot indeed name every single one of the exploits of Ulysses, but I can say what he did when he was before Troy, and you, Achaeans, were in all sorts of difficulties. The wine. He covered himself with wounds and bruises, dressed himself all in rags, and entered the enemy city looking like a menial or a beggar, and quite different from what he did when he was among his own people. In this disguise, he entered the city of Troy, and no one said anything to him. I alone recognized him and began to question him, but he was too cunning for me. When, however, I had washed and anointed him, and had given him clothes, and after I had sworn a solemn oath not to betray him to the Trojans till he had got safely back to his own camp and to the ships, he told me all that the Achaeans meant to do. He killed many Trojans and got much information before he reached the Argive camp, for all which things the Trojan women made lamentation. But for my own part, I was glad. Wow. I was glad, for my heart was beginning to yearn after my home, and I was unhappy about the wrong that Venus had done me in taking me over there, away from my country, my girl, and my lawful wedded husband, who is indeed by no means deficient either in person or understanding. Trojan like the horse, like the people, the Trojans. What a wild thing to pull out there, Ace. Just hiding in your wallet. Like the Empire, that's right. The Trojan Empire. Then Menelaus said, "All that you have been saying, my dear wife, is true. I have traveled much, and have had much to do with heroes. But I have never seen another man as Ulysses. What endurance, too, and what courage he displayed within the wooden horse, wherein all the bravest of the Argives were lying in wait to bring death and destruction upon the Trojans. At that moment you came up to us. Some god who wished well to the Trojans must have set you on it, and you had Deiphobus with you. 3 times did you all go all round our hiding place and pat it." It's that emo. "Round our hiding place and pat it. You called our chiefs each by his own name, and mimicked all our wives, Diomed, Ulysses, and I from our seats inside, and heard what noise you made." Diomed and I could not make up our minds whether to spring out then and there, or to answer you from inside, but Ulysses held us all in check. It's a biting lip emote? Ah, interesting. You would have accepted a giant wooden horse too as a gift. You don't blame them. Fair enough, it is cool. But Ulysses held us all in check, so we sat quite still, all except Anticlus, who was beginning to answer you, when Ulysses clapped his 2 brawny hands over his mouth and kept them there. It was this that saved us all, for he muzzled Anticlus till Minerva took you away again. "How sad," exclaimed Telemachus, "that all this was of no avail to save him, nor yet his own iron courage. But now, sir, be pleased to send us all to bed, that we may lie down and enjoy the blessed boon of sleep." On this, Helen told the maidservants to set beds in the room that was in the gatehouse, and to make them with good red rugs, and spread coverlets on the top of them, with woolen cloaks for the guests to wear. I didn't type that. I don't know what you're talking about. So the maids went out, carrying a torch, and made the beds, to which a manservant presently conducted the strangers. Thus then did Telemachus and Pisistratus sleep there in the forecourt, while the son of Atreus lay in an inner room with his lovely Helen by his side. In the morning, when the child of morning, rosy-fingered Dawn appeared, Menelaus rose and dressed himself. He bound his sandals on to his comely feet, girded his sword about his shoulders, and left his room looking like an immortal god. Then, taking a seat near Telemachus, he said, "And what, Telemachus, has led you to take this long sea voyage to Lacedaemon? Are you on public or private business? Tell me about it." "I have come, sir," replied Telemachus, "to see if you can tell me anything about my father. I am being eaten out of house and home. My fair estate is being wasted, and my house is full of miscreants who keep killing great numbers of my sheep and oxen on the pretense of paying their addresses to my mother. Therefore, I am suppliant at your knees, if haply you may tell me about my father's melancholy end, whether you saw it with your own eyes, or heard it from some other traveler, for he was a man born to trouble. You're not wrong, Ace. Do not soften things out of any pity for me, but tell me in all plainness exactly what you saw. If my brave father Ulysses ever did you loyal service, either by word or deed, when you Achaeans were harassed by the Trojans, bear it in mind now, in my favor, and tell me truly all. Menelaus, on hearing this, was very shocked. So, he exclaimed, these cowards would usurp a brave man's bed. A hind might as well lay her newborn young in the lair of a lion and then go off to feed in the forest or in some grassy dell. The lion, when he comes back to his lair, will make short work with the pair of them, and so will Ulysses with these suitors. By Father Jove, Minerva, and Apollo, if Ulysses is still the man that he was when he wrestled with Philomeleidas in Lesbos, man, that's a hard name, and threw him so heavily that all the Achaeans cheered him, if he is still such, and were to come near these suitors, they would have short shrift and a sorry wedding. As regards your questions, however, I will not prevaricate nor deceive you, but will tell you without concealment all that the old man of the sea told me. You're slowly entering the dream realm? Good. Close those eyes, listen to my words, and slowly drift to sleep. Get that rest you so deserve, and be ready for tomorrow. I was trying to come on here, but the gods detained me in Egypt, for my hecatombs had not given them full satisfaction, and the gods are very strict about having their dues. Now off Egypt, about as far as a ship can sail in a day, with a good stiff breeze behind her, there is an island called Pharos, and it has a good harbor from which vessels can get out into open sea when they have taken in water. And here the gods becalmed me 20 days without so much as a breath of fair air to help me forward. We should have run clear out of provisions, and my men would have starved, if a goddess had not taken pity upon me and saved me in the person of Eidothea, daughter of Proteus, the old man of the sea, for she had taken a great fancy to me. She came to me one day when I was by myself, as I often was, for the men used to go with their barbed hooks all over the island in hope of catching a fish or two to save them from the pangs of hunger. "Stranger," said she, "it seems to me that you like starving in this way. At any rate, it does not greatly trouble you, for you stick here day after day, without even trying to get away through your men are dying by inches." "Let me tell you," said I, "whichever of the goddesses you may happen to me, that I am not staying here of my own accord, but must have offended the gods that live in heaven. Tell me, therefore, for the gods know everything, which of the immortals it is that is hindering me in this way, and tell me how I may sail the sea so as to reach my home." "Stranger," replied she, "I will make it all clear to you. There is an immortal who lives under the sea hereabouts, and whose name is Proteus. He is an Egyptian, and people say he is my father. He is Neptune's head man, and knows every inch of the ground all over the bottom of the sea. If you can snare him and hold him tight, he will tell you about your voyage, what courses you are to take, and how you are to sail the sea so as to reach your home. He will also tell you, if you so will, all that has been going on at your house, both good and bad, while you have been away on your long and dangerous journey. Hello, Solar, and welcome in. You almost fell asleep? I'm doing a good job then. Can you show me, said I, some stratagem by means of which I may catch this old god without his suspecting it and finding me out? For a god is not easily caught, not by a mortal man. Stranger, said she, I will make it all quite clear to you. About the time when the sun shall have reached mid-heaven, the old man of the sea comes up from under the waves, heralded by the west wind that whirs the water over his head. As soon as he has come up, he lies down and goes to sleep in a great sea cave, where the seals, Hallosidai, that's a weird name, Hallosidnes, Yes, I need you. Hallosidnes chickens, as they call them, come up also from the gray sea and go to shoulder in shoals all round him. And a very strong and fish-like smell do they bring with them. Early tomorrow morning I will take you to this place and will lay you in ambush. Pick out, therefore, the 3 best men you have in your fleet, and I will tell you all the tricks that the old man will play you. My poor shoulders. First, he will look over all his seals and count them. Then, when he has seen them and tallied them upon his 5 fingers, he will go to sleep among them, as a shepherd among his sheep. The moment you see that he is asleep, seize him, put forth all your strength, and hold him fast, for he will do his very utmost to get away from you. He will turn himself into every kind of creature that goes upon the earth, and you will also become both fire and water. But you must hold him fast and grip him tighter and tighter till he begins to talk to you and comes back to what he was when you saw him go to sleep. You are licking the roof right now, that is true. Then you may slacken your hold and let him go, and you can ask him which of the gods it is that is angry with you, and what you must do to reach your home over the seas. Having so said, she dived under the waves, whereon I turned back to the place where my ships were ranged upon the shore, and my heart was clouded with care as I went along. When I reached my ship, we got supper ready, for night was falling, and camped down upon the beach. Oh, Solar. When the child of morning rosy-fingered dawn appeared, I took the 3 men on whose prowess of all kinds I could most rely, and went along by the seaside, praying heartily to heaven. Meanwhile, the goddess fetched me up 4 sealskins from the bottom of the sea, all of them just skinned, for she meant playing a trick upon her father. Then she dug 4 pits for us to lie in, and sat down to wait till we should come up. When we were close to her, she made us lie down in the pits one after the other, and threw a sealskin over each of us. We'll have to watch the VOD and check. Oh, that was a weird and wild time. Our ambuscade would have been intolerable, for the stench of the fishy seals was most distressing. Who would go to the bed with a sea monster if he could help it? But here, too, the goddess helped us, and thought of something that gave us great relief, for she put some ambrosia under each man's nostrils, which was so fragrant that it killed the smell of the seals. Okay, I think this is a good stopping point for tonight. As loath as I am to leave early, oh boy, there's a lot of pages before we get to the next book. And I do have to get up nice and early for tomorrow. So everyone, once again, I just want to say thank you all for coming by. You really make this stream what it is, and I appreciate each and every one of you for coming by, following, subscribing, and just enjoying your time here. What a lively stream, yeah. I forgot it was already Monday. I have a few hours to go. But everyone, once again, thank you all for being here. I will see you all another time. And I'm going to send you all towards Vtuber, who of course is a cool guy also doing ASMR. You guys have a wonderful night. Take care.